today's meeting. Thank you. And we do have a quorum.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to additions, deletions, adjustments to the agenda.
None, sir.
Okay, perfect. Moving on to public comment. Anybody in the public wishing to make public comment, or anybody on Zoom?
But no.
Okay, seeing none, we're going to move on to special presentations and recognitions. We do have an employee recognition, a retirement for Mr. Mark Young, Senior Control Systems Operator, 30 years. I believe he's in the audience. Good morning, sir. So a little bit about Mr. Young. Mark Young's contributions to the control center are innumerable. He worked hard to find efficiencies and ensure uniformity within our processes. He took new control system operators under his wing to train them on control processes and expected responses. Mark provided training for all the operators on canal operating techniques, abnormal operating procedures, and calculations for achieving the appropriate levels and flows within the canal. You know, one time I went out with one of the Sanjeros, and you guys have your own special mathematics that you write on the pipe. So I imagine you trained them on that. He made sure that there were consistent displays, labeling, color coding, and formatting within the new SCADA system. As it was developed, he reported on the anomalies occurring within SCADA and provided valuable suggestions for resolutions. Mark also had a knack for researching the typical procedures and responsibilities of other control centers to ensure that CVWD was keeping up with the latest and greatest. An example of the results of this research led to the development of CVWD's alarm management philosophy, which was the impetus to the reduction of over 200,000 alarms per year. Wow, that's a lot. As the senior control systems operator, Mark relied upon his extensive 30-year career at CVWD to conduct his daily duties, perform data analysis, populate alarm tracking reports, and trend operating systems. He was thorough and unbiased in his reporting to ensure that only the facts were provided, although he did not shy away from providing his opinion when given the opportunity. Mark has been a dedicated employee with an affinity to the control center. Control is better off now, having had him in it. We are so grateful to have had the opportunity to work with and glean knowledge from Mark during his time in the control center. Thank you, sir. So I think with that, we will go to the front.
It's a retirement one.
Okay. Here you go, sir. Thank you. Get right in the middle here, and I think Jim has his first on.
I do not have a script, I just ad lib all the time. I hate to be scripted. That's communications now.
That's not right here. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3.
Whoops.
Got me.
This is for your speech.
Oh, okay. All right, yeah. Just want to say thank you to everyone. Many of the people in this room were a major part of my life, major part of my time here at CVWD. And when I came over here 30 years ago, I thought I was working in the city of Coachella. I was so ignorant of this whole place, and I learned quickly what a big and important organization we are. And I appreciate all the things I was able to do to assist, and I'm happy to know that there, Tino and the others in the control room are going to keep things moving along nicely. And thank you, all of you. I'm going to be thinking of you, especially when it's 115 degrees, and hopefully I'm not here, but I will be coming up and visiting regularly, so not the end of seeing me. Just thank you all so much for everything.
Well done.
Okay, thank you, sir. Okay, we're gonna move on to consent calendar. Are there any items the board wishes to pull?
Make a motion to approve.
There's
Second.
a motion. There's a second. Do we need roll call? Can we just call the? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. None opposed. I think 3-0. Okay, so now moving on to the action calendar, we have item 8A, Sustainable Groundwater Management Act. We're gonna hear from Zoe.
Just tap it.
Just got
There you go. There you go.
It takes a precise tap. Good morning, Vice President Estrada, members of the board. I think this is a fairly straightforward item, a straightforward request, which is to execute task order number 5 of the professional services agreement with Todd Groundwater to begin the preparation of the next 5-year periodic evaluation of our Sigma alternative plan for the Indio Subbasin. That 5-year periodic evaluation is a requirement of Sigma, both under the statute and the emergency regulations. The request is for task order cost of $1,182,120. And a 10% contingency of $118,212. That 10% contingency is a little bit higher than the board likes to see, but with this planning document and the process taking a long time, relatively speaking, the groundwater sustainability agencies wanted to see that higher contingency. There's some items that have a little bit of uncertainty, such as planning for demands under making conservation a way of life in California. So the total request is $1,300,332. We are fortunate of the collaboration going on in this basin. So that cost will be split evenly between Desert Water Agency, Coachella Valley Water District, Indio Water Authority, and Coachella Water Authority, with CBWD's portion being $325,083 over 3 fiscal years. I don't really have much more in way of presentation than that, but I'm happy to answer any questions about the process or any other questions that the board may have.
So I have a question. Did Todd Groundwater do this 5 years ago?
Yes, they did.
Okay.
They were the process for selecting the consultant that supports the GSAs. It is through CBWD's competitive process, and we recently, actually in 2024, went out with another RFP for that support, and Todd Groundwater was selected unanimously by the 4 GSAs of the Indio Subbasin.
My only other question would be is the cost. It just seems like, I understand when we put the plan together in the beginning, that was a lot of work. But it seems like now, since we already have a plan, it's just an update to the plan to make sure that we're on track for the plan. And you talked about California Way of Life, that there may be a slight change there, but it just seems so expensive.
So, for comparison, when we did this, about 5 years ago, the cost was actually higher. It came in at about 1.5, and with inflation, this cost really seems in line, which is why the GSAs thought it was an acceptable cost. While it may seem that we're just doing a small update, there are a variety of things that will be updated that require quite a bit of work. For example, we'll be extending demands through 2050. There is, the same level of public outreach that is required under Sigma. That's a critical part, to have lots of meetings along the way to keep the public engaged. They are, besides the demand projections, we'll be looking at all of the projects and supplies to make sure that we can remain sustainable. In addition, the groundwater model still needs to be run to demonstrate to DWR that the plan that's being adopted makes us sustainable, not just within our planning horizon, which is through 2050, but also there are requirements that you look at an additional 25 years out to be able to stress test that the plan is sustainable under different hydrologic conditions. So yes, I agree. There's also other things that we're doing, such as looking at lowering our minimum thresholds and to adopt measurable objectives at 2009 levels, but then lowering our minimum thresholds so that we have greater flexibility in operating the basin, particularly as we look at the situation in the Colorado River, contracts that allow us to move water, just a variety of things. So I think given that it's lower, the fact that consultants have raised their prices since back in 2019 when we started the last process, I think that the cost is, it's a competitive cost and very similar to what folks are paying in other areas.
Yeah, very comprehensive answer. I think just because the current consultants have a familiarity is to our advantage, but there's still an enormous amount of data collection and analysis that has to be done. Just because you looked at the wells last year doesn't mean you don't have to look at them again. I mean, Zoe touched on a number of these things as they went through the discussion of the response. But there's pluses and minuses. I think we benefit because they've been involved with us before, but there's still a huge work pill here that has to be managed.
Yeah, I think you bring up a fair point, and yeah, obviously there's an advantage. I think we would just hope that it was more obvious on the price tag.
And the next one really is eye popping because it's so much smaller.
And I think that were they also the consultant that do the annual reports?
Yes, they do they do the annual report.
Yeah. So to that point, right? They're not just getting a snapshot from conditions 5 years ago. They've actually been gathering all the data every year between the last 5 years that it took for us to put this together.
We're gathering the data and
No,
giving them the data.
what I'm saying is we do that every year.
Yeah.
Because there's annual reports. You have this annual report in front of you, I think, and so they're constantly engaging with the GSAs to gather that information. So they do have a bulk of the information, I would imagine. But to your point, if this was competitive, I think how many responses did we get?
On the PSA, to be honest, we only got one response, and I think that that's something that we've been seeing on several technical efforts.
I think that's the.
But we have other, for example, IRWM rates, different things to compare it to, and Todd Groundwater's rates are quite competitive compared to,
Sure.
and the same thing with their sub Rincon. They're competitive
Sure.
compared to other technical.
Yeah, that's sometimes we get so ingrained with the consultant that then kind of scares away all other consultants.
Well, he did a good job the first time, so I mean, I'm happy that he's doing it again. It's just,
No,
And-
they
I
do
just
they
complain a
do a
little bit
great
because
job.
it seems like so much money for an updated in the plan. So I mean, there's no way around it. I get
And
it.
they're
I'm
coordinating.
just venting to you.
No, I understand, and they are coordinating for GSAs, which is why, at the end of the day, the cost to CBWD is only $325,000. It's $325,000 for DWA, etc. You see, some small plans where folks create their own plans rather than creating a coordinated plan, and everybody's paying $500,000 or $600,000. And for CBWD with all of the enterprises, I can tell you because with the last alternative plan update, I was deeply involved in queuing all of the data. We have so many enterprises and so many drops of water, from recycled water to canal to groundwater across different sectors, that it takes a tremendous amount of effort to bring all that information together in a way that is rapidly useful to put into the groundwater model. And we get really big benefits from having a firm that is familiar with our groundwater model and can really do a good job in terms of analyzing the conditions of the basin.
All right. Any other questions?
No, I would move approval of item 8A.
There's a motion.
Second.
There's a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Thank you, Zoe.
Thank you.
Think you have the next one.
I do. So the next one, I won't repeat everything. I'll just say this is similarly, for the for the Mission Creek Subbasin, 5-year periodic evaluation is required. The process is similar, and the total cost is $875,825, with a request for up to a 10% contingency of $87,853. Total of $963,408. The agencies that participate in that update are Desert Water Agency, Mission Springs Water District, and CVWD. So in addition, unlike the Indio Subbasin where there's an MOU standing that covers all these agreements, in the Mission Creek, it's been taken sort of one step at a time. So the third request is also to authorize executing the Memorandum of Understanding for the 2027 5-year update of the alternative plan for the Mission Creek Subbasin. So 3 requests there, and happy to take any questions.
So just wondering, is Mission paying into this also?
Yes, Mission Springs Water District, Desert Water Agency, and CVWD split it evenly, so
Okay.
each agency will pay 1/3.
Even though they're not a GSA?
Correct. They're not a GSA, but they are a participating agency, and so they collaborate on all SGMA-related items, everything from preparation of annual reports to periodic evaluations of the alternative plan updates. They participate in SNMP, the TSS, where we receive funding to drill wells. They are, a fully participating member with regards to the Mission Creek's planning documents.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions from the board? Seeing none, is there a motion?
I'll make a motion.
It's a motion.
Second.
There's a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. I think you got the next one too, Zoe. No? Is that
I
you?
believe the next one's going to be taken by Jared Dawson.
Jared. Good to see you, Jared.
Good morning, Vice President Estrada, members of the board. My name is Jared Dawson. I'm a Water Resources Associate here at CVWD, and today's item consists of requesting approval for the water supply assessment of the CV Commerce Center project. The CV Commerce Center is located in the northwest portion of the Coachella Valley within the city of Cathedral City. The project is bounded by vacant lands in Varner Road to the north, Rio del Sol, and commercial and industrial development to the east, vacant lands to the west, and the I-10 freeway and Union Pacific Railroad corridor to the south, as depicted in these project regional location and vicinity maps. The proposed project is comprised of 4 sites that would result in the development of a mixed-use industrial park on approximately 561.1 acres, consisting of 7,926,750 square feet of industrial space, 100,815 square feet of general commercial space, and up to 533 multifamily residential dwelling units. We've included project site plans in this presentation for your reference, but we will continue to move on. As previously stated, the project proposes 4 distinct sites of approximately 561.1 acres. The project land use table breaks this down further, with Site 1 having a land use designation of industrial and logistics with 301 acres. Site 2 proposing industrial logistics land use designation comprised of 129.6 acres. Site number 3, same with land use designation of industrial logistics with 104.2 acres. And Site 4 proposing a mixed use land use designation with 10.52 acres dedicated to commercial and 15.78 acres dedicated to residential. And again, that would be or Site 4 would have up to 533 estimated dwelling units. This gets us to the projected total water demand of the project. The total projected indoor residential demand of the project is 68.46 acre feet per year. The total projected commercial and industrial demand is 1,677.37 acre feet per year. The projected outdoor irrigation demand is 380.89 acre feet per year, and the outdoor recreational demand would be projected at 5.23 acre feet per year, for a total water demand projected to be 2,131.96 acre feet per year, representing 3.8 acre feet per acre. This WSA has been prepared in compliance with the requirements set forth in Senate Bill 610 and 1262 by Terra Nova Planning and Research in consultation with CVWD and in the city of Cathedral City. This WSA does not relieve the project from complying with all applicable state, county, city, and local ordinances or regulations, including the CVWD Landscape Ordinance and Indoor Water Use Performance Standard provided in the California Water Code now or into the future. With that, I will conclude my presentation. We'll be happy to answer questions regarding the WSA. To note, we also have Kelly Clark in attendance representing Terra Nova, who is working as the consultant with the developer preparing this water supply assessment.
Thank you, Jared. Just one quick question. If you go back to like slide number 3, number 5, there you go. I'm just wondering why some of these uses don't have EDUs.
So site 1, 2, and 3 have no residential designation to them, so they will have no dwelling units associated to it. Only Site 4 would have dwelling units.
Okay, I'm just trying to follow here. If the EDUs are a function of calculating a water demand, or what's the function of the EDUs as it relates to the demands that you're calculating? Because I see different land uses, which I imagine have water demands, but I thought you combined all of that into equivalent EDUs.
The EDUs have a specific indoor residential water demand, which would be, that's where the calculation would come from within residential. If there's no residential land use designation, as is seen in sites 1 through 3, we wouldn't use any of the indoor residential water use standards.
Go to the next slide.
Please.
Vice President Estrada, I think the question that you're asking, the link here is those EDUs come when the project is actually firmed up. The water supply assessment estimates water use based on the type of development and factors. This is a high-level planning document that is intended to support the CEQA process for the developer. So,
so
it's high-level water factors based on the type of development in each land use.
Yeah.
And what Jared was referring to correctly is it does use dwelling units to estimate indoor water demand for residential, but for everything else, it's based on like I said, it's based on factors. Like
Yeah, we had those old
it's
factors.
restaurants have a
Yeah.
factor, warehouses have a factor. So that's the difference between the high-level planning based on preliminary projected land use to support CEQA versus when the development is firmed up and they seek service from
Okay,
CBWD.
so then that's why in this table, the indoor residential demand is also not applicable, but then you have all these other demands.
Correct. It's broken up into, it's basically, let's just say it's summed up based on these broad categories. Indoor residential demand doesn't include irrigation. Irrigation's treated under outdoor irrigation demand, both for common areas and homes. Indoor commercial is any land uses, planned land uses that would fall into that category. The factors applied again based on more information about what they're planning to develop within those areas.
Thank you for the clarification. Any other questions?
Yeah, I have a question. So in the staff report, and Zoe, you may have to come back up for this, but in the staff report, it says that the total estimated water demand represents 4.2% of the total demand number of 50,108 acre feet by 2045. So what is that 50,108?
So the 50
What does that represent, and what is that based on?
that represents the growth projections of water demand from 29. The average was 2019 to 2023, and then to 2045. So the growth in water demand within that time period.
For the entire valley, or for just this one area, or what does that cover?
I'll let you go ahead.
So it goes to the approval of the prior item. Since our Sigma alternative plans are water managed planning documents, when we did the last update, we updated projections on water demand across all sectors for all the valley. That specific amount is the projected growth in water demand within the municipal sector for CVWD.
Okay, great, perfect, thank you.
Yeah, and I really like seeing those numbers there because it gives you a sense of how much this project is biting off of that pie, right? Like we've projected, we have this much cake, and this project's gonna take this much of it. And so, when it's a low number, you're like, we've projected for that, and it's within that projection. So, any other questions?
No.
No.
I would move approval of this item, thank you, Jerry.
There's a motion.
Second.
There's a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jared. Motion passes. Then moving on to informational items and reports. Written communications to the board as filed.
I did, just for the record, I did distribute a revised version this morning for you that we had an additional one that came in this morning that was added. And staff is working on that.
Thank you. Moving on to 9B, informational presentations to the board. We have one item, Sustainable Groundwater Management Act, Water Year 2023 to 2024 annual reports for Indio and Mission Creek subbasins.
Like the Zoe show.
It's appropriate.
I don't know why Sylvia planned it this way. No, just kidding. So I am happy to present the conditions of the basin for water year 2023-2024. This is based on the annual reports that are prepared for the Indio subbasin and the Mission Creek subbasin. So similar short presentation as last year and the year before, so forth and so on. So I'll keep it brief, but happy to answer any questions at the end or as we go along. So update on Sigma compliance. As the board is aware, the alternative plan update, the 2022 one that was submitted to DWR, Department of Water Resources, at the end of December 2021, it received approval. We received the approval on June 27, 2024. with minor corrective actions. I do want to note, just to, as a reminder, that they did carry a corrective action from the initial approval, which is that the GSAs continue to work towards developing a salt and nutrient management plan that can be approved and adopted by the Regional Water Board. Last year, we submitted our annual report for water year 2023. We didn't really get any comments on that, so that's good. We're doing what we need to do. And like we do every year, we are planning a public workshop for the Indio Subbasin, which is scheduled for March 12th from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. So beginning with the Indio Subbasin, this graphic shows the area covered by the Indio Subbasin, but also by what we call the Indio Subbasin Planning Area. So there are areas particularly around the northern Salton Sea that receive water from the Indio Subbasin, as well as some areas, let's say northeast, that are in the sphere of influence of City of Indio and City of Coachella that may in the future receive water from the Indio Subbasin. As I mentioned before, there's strong collaboration in this basin, with 4 GSAs participating in planning: Coachella Valley Water District, Coachella Water Authority, Desert Water Agency, and Indio Water Authority. So update on water demand and supply. The total demand across all sectors during the last water year, 2023 to 24, that's the planning time period. The DWR uses the water year starts on October 1 and ends on September 30th. So the total use was 554,386. There was about a 21,000 acre-foot increase from the previous year, partly due to 2 things. We had a hotter year, and also we think we saw a small bump after several years of being under state mandates for conservation. So here's our projected demand increase based on the 2022 alternative plan update, which shows, or projected that based on population growth that's projected for the area, water use would increase by about 8%. The number seems low relative to population, as I remind folks every year, just because 8% of 500 and something is about 40,000 acre feet, or over 100,000 homes. So our 5-year average right now is at 560,466, which is approximately 7.3% lower than the 2024 projections. Another way that I like to look at that, it's just a little bit more than recharge at TL, that difference. So we actively monitor the Indio Subbasin at over 355 wells. 57 of these are the wells that were designated for SGMA purposes to track our sustainability and compliance. And then an additional 298 wells are monitored. As the board may recall, those key wells have minimum thresholds set. Those are levels that we said, as long as we stay above these levels, we can say with high confidence that we're sustainable based on the fact that we experienced those water levels in the past, we took action, and we did not see any significant and unreasonable negative impacts from those water levels. I can report that, again, for water year 23-24, all 57 wells are well above their minimum thresholds. And so we will be, again, reporting in our annual reports that this basin is being managed sustainably.
What would happen if just one well?
One well would not cause anything. There's several elements about being sustainable. A single well does not equal not being sustainable. So when the true minimum the true indicator of lack of sustainability is 25% of these wells being below the minimum threshold for 5 years. 5 years was selected as an amount that DWR would find reasonable to be below those thresholds, but also recognizing that for such a big basin to take action to turn things around, or also based on the typical duration of droughts, that 5 years was very reasonable. So you'd have to have 25% of these wells below the minimum threshold for 5 years before it would be considered unsustainable. So we have a lot of, let's call them road signs along the way, where if someone comes back and starts reporting 15% of the wells, 20% of the wells have been below for 1 year, that's when we need to start looking at what additional actions the GSAs can take. But right now we are well above minimum thresholds in the majority of the wells. So the 1 year change in groundwater level, we've been doing some really hardy recharge at Whitewater. So you see in the upper portion of the Indio Subbasin, that blue color means increases in water levels upwards of 25 feet. And that then starts to, let's just say, trickle downstream or down gradient. So there's a lot of blue all the way through the mid-valley. We have not been recharging at TL for several years. So in the eastern portion, we are starting to see a year-over-year decline. The majority of those declines are in the immediate area of the Thomas E. Levy facility, where through continuous recharge, there was a mounding of up to 90 feet. The rest of the valley has seen very mild declines. And so all of the wells right now are above their minimum thresholds. I believe I know that we share water levels in the East Valley on a triennial basis. And so we've been tracking that very closely with internal triggers to monitor more frequently if anything seems to be declining too quickly. But right now we're still in good shape with projected reduced recharge through 2026.
So go back to that.
Yes.
Yeah, that was something that we wanted to track, right? When we made those concessions on not recharging at the facility and keeping that water in Lake Mead instead. And I think are you monitoring that on a quarterly basis, or?
It's a triennial basis. So 3 times a year we look at the data. We prepare an internal report. If anything is worrisome, the action that would be taken, the first immediate action would be to begin monitoring at a higher frequency. Right now, based on what we've been seeing, the triennial monitoring is still giving us a good picture without there being any risk of going below the minimum thresholds. And I think that I can explain that really well in the next graphic.
When staff presents the next year's change, will it be the change from when we first stop replenishing, or will it be a change from where we left off this year and then the change? Is it a cumulative change, or is it, how is that represented? Because if I look at this, let's say,
Right.
if I want to look at this next year and I want to say, well, how much did it change from when we first stopped replenishing versus from now? That's going to be a different elevation, right? So how is that presented?
So let me go to the next graphic and show how the cumulative is presented. But, it would be simple enough in this presentation to include a few key hydrographs to show those changes specific to the East Valley. But how we present it in the annual report is that the basin saw its lowest groundwater levels between the year 2009-2010. So we also compare current levels to to water year 2009 levels, because that's really well aligned with the minimum thresholds. So when you look at this graphic, taking into consideration that anything that's not yellow is an increase, it demonstrates that we are still above the minimum thresholds in the East Valley. I don't think that that answers the question of cumulative from when we stopped recharge, but I think the figure demonstrates that, you know, we're still not concerned that we are going to be in any way unsustainable. But I will recommend that if the board wants to track more the changes in the East Valley, that staff incorporate some key hydrographs in the East Valley.
Yeah, I think I would be interested in seeing how that orange red starts to move into that yellow, right? Because it does seem like the red is causing some effect on a bigger portion, which is primarily overlying over the agencies that pay the replenishment charge, and so I would want to see how that orange starts to now become yellow if it happens. I don't know if it's going to be clear if we just do it from year to year, right? Because from year to year it might continue to look the same, but if you do a cumulative, then you're going to be bumping into the orange, into the red, and that's really what I'm concerned about.
But the good news is that that's just a 1 year, so it looks drastic for 1 year because we didn't put 30,000 acre feet in. But if you look at this other one that says since 2009, it really hasn't changed much. So it looks like it's changed a lot because we're looking at it over a year. But since 2009, we're still blue like everybody else. That area is blue like everywhere else.
Correct. And, you know, it indicates we're above those minimum thresholds. And, I think the way to think about minimum thresholds, it's almost, let's reduce it to something really simple. A water system tank, you set, minimum levels, and that difference between how high you're above the minimum thresholds and the minimum thresholds, that's really your operating flexibility, whether that be for situations like contributing to Lake Mead or sustained drought. What the minimum thresholds say is, with these 2009 levels, we didn't see wells go dry. Pumps have to be significantly lowered. We didn't see significant land subsidence. So it is a sustainable situation that we're still in. But understood on wanting to see that in a more cumulative fashion, and the recommendation there would be to include a few graphics of wells in the East Valley.
The numbers you show next to the dots, what do those numbers represent?
The numbers next to the dots is these are wells, and we can do it this way to begin here. The dots next to the wells are essentially, you take the prior water year and you do a subtraction relative to this year's water levels, and then you turn that into a surface with different colors based on those differences. So it's changing groundwater levels. And I think that it's a really good point that besides the area immediately next to TL, the rest is yellow, which is in the 0 to 5 feet decline, which is quite mild. And again, that reminder that the orange near TL looks so extreme because we had 90-foot mounds. So that mound is the first thing to dissipate when there's no recharge or limited recharge.
Okay.
And so same thing, you can see that compared to 2009, you've got, just some really impressive numbers, 30 feet, 40 feet. So we are still really in good shape.
That's 25, 34 feet above 2009.
Correct.
It'll be really interesting to see, we started stopping the recharge here we were trying to do it at the same time that the Oasis project was coming on, but it didn't work that way. So there was a year there where the Oasis project wasn't online when we were not putting water in. But since then, we've started to. So maybe next year you'll get to, or in a couple years, you'll get to see some of that effects of all those people not pumping out of the ground in that kind of same vicinity.
Yeah, thank you. I was actually going to bring up Oasis because that project has the ability to offset a very, very large, probably 80% of our typical recharge at Thomas E. Levy. So while the Oasis project is a little bit further down gradient than Thomas E. Levy, so we might see things recover in a lower first and then going up, that great reduction in groundwater pumping is expected to have the equivalent impact as putting water into the ground. There'll be less water being removed from the groundwater basin. So change in groundwater storage, estimated storage increase last water year of 184,670, not bad, with inflows of 510,000 and outflows of 325,000. So I think just generally what this shows is when we have these big replenishment years, the groundwater replenishment portion is able to match and exceed the outflows from the basin. So during those high recharge years, we are adding to storage, which, then we might have years that we have negative storage, but it is a balance of the entire time period. And I think this is what we see in this graphic, kind of a very busy graphic, but I always like to say, let's focus on the yellow line and the green line. The yellow line is if you take years where we withdrew from storage and years that we added to storage, that yellow line, the 10-year average, has been positive since 2017. And the 20-year, which is the green line, this is the second year that it's positive. And as I said last year, and I'll repeat this year, this is good cause for celebration. From the Sigma perspective of sustainability and having a balanced groundwater basin, they typically refer to 20 years. So yet another indicator that the Indio Subbasin is being managed sustainably.
This is a big thing because there's not a lot of areas in the state of California that look like this.
That is
This is a
absolutely
big thing.
correct.
Yeah.
So moving on to the Mission Creek Subbasin, the collaborating agencies are Coachella Valley Water District, Desert Water Agency, and Mission Springs Water District. Smaller basin, so there's 24 monitoring wells, 9 are key wells, again, where we have established metrics of sustainability, and an additional 15 wells. In the Mission Creek Subbasin, since it's smaller and things can happen very quickly, there were measurable objectives set. That's where we want to maintain water levels, and it was in line with the 2014 plan and the agreements made for the management of the Mission Creek. But we also set minimum thresholds a little bit lower to provide additional flexibility, as it's a basin where things can happen very quickly. At the moment, all wells are above their minimum thresholds, and 1 well is below the measurable objective. However, that well, which we call 04P01, which provides coverage in the southern part of the Mission Creek Subbasin, didn't have enough historical data, so the measurable objective and minimum threshold were based on computer simulations of groundwater levels based on our groundwater flow model, and we made it clear to DWR that as we get more data, we would revisit the MOs and MTs there. So again, we're above minimum thresholds, and only that well with a provisional level is below its measurable objective. The 1-year change, saw some, again, very short time period, some declines in water levels across the basin. But again, when we look at the relative comparison to 2009, those blue colors, and particularly the deeper blue colors, show that groundwater levels and as a proxy storage are well above 2009 levels. So there's, at the moment, no concerns for the sustainability of Mission Creek. And what you'll see reported next year is we put quite a bit of water this year. So that'll be start being reflected in subsequent years. The change in storage for this year, there was artificial replenishment of 5,432 acre feet. So when balancing the pumping and other natural outflows with the natural and artificial replenishment inflows, there was an estimated change in storage of 200 acre feet. So for the year, quite well balanced. When we look at the bigger picture, here it's going to be the blue line, that is the 10-year change in storage. We have had some, and I'm going to try to explain why doesn't worry me quite yet. We've had a few years where we've withdrawn a little bit of water from storage. But when you look at the 20-year average, the basin is being operated right at the zero line, which means over a 20-year period, which again is a reasonable period to capture, drought years, wet years, the basin is in balance. We did have some very large years of replenishment back in 2007, 2009. So we still have higher than 2009 groundwater levels as a result of that artificial recharge. So what we're doing is drawing on it now. But again, the long-term goal is over a reasonable time period to make sure that inflows and outflows are at least around that zero line. So from that perspective, the basin is still being managed sustainably. We're above minimum thresholds. The 20-year is in balance. So in summary, the alternative plans are working great. And the alternative plans really are the actions of CVWD staff, from imported water to engineering projects. They are working to address historical overdraft in both the Indio and the Mission Creek subbasin. Sustainability objectives established in the 2022 plans are being met for both subbasins. And particularly if all of those WSAs that we've been bringing to you get built. The importance of replenishment, source substitution, and conservation remain very important tools to maintain that sustainable management into the future. So with that, happy to take any additional questions. Otherwise, you'll get another report next year.
Any other questions? No, great report, Zoe.
Hey Zoe, before you step away from the podium and in a larger sense from the district, unfortunately we don't have the full board here, but in the presence of the board members that are here, I want to express my deep and sincere gratitude for all the contributions you've made here. Your efforts in providing for the long-term management and sustainability of the basin have been incredible. Your ability to work collaboratively with the other water agencies and the Regional Quality Control Board in a number of areas of importance to the district has been very beneficial. You are going to be very hard to replace. I have been very impressed with everything you've done, your talent, your intelligence, your ability to express yourself clearly and directly, to anticipate questions, to have those answers. You've functioned as our technical expert in our most enduring lawsuit, again, to the great benefit of the district. And so I just can't say thank you enough for all you've done for us. I wish you the best of luck moving forward. If there's anything I can do or we can do to help you continue to be successful in your other endeavors, please don't hesitate to ask.
Thank you. It's just been an absolute pleasure working for CBWD and in the Coachella Valley. I do believe that the partnerships with other agencies on Sigma bring tremendous benefit. When I look across California and see folks who, aren't getting plans approved because they haven't been able to coordinate their actions with adjoining GSAs, I cannot emphasize the value to everybody of those collaborative efforts. And on salt and nutrient management planning, which is underway, the benefits of having a successful plan approved by the regional board are untold. It touches everything from recycled water to replenishment to wastewater treatment. So it's just been really an honor to work with all of the agencies and all of the folks here at CBWD. It's been a pleasure working under Carrie for the last year, one of the highlights of my career. I really wish you all good luck and, continued success in what is just some outstanding groundwater management in the state of California.
Zoe, I'll just share some thoughts too real quickly. I think you've done an amazing job, and it is going to be very hard to replace you. I think that over the years I've seen how the other agencies kind of gathered around you as a leader. A lot of people relied on you, on your expertise and your understanding of the basin and how to manage it. And so, that was something that was great to see. And it's going to be hard to figure out who's going to be the next Zoe. But I think you did an amazing job. I think that you left some type of a footprint or roadmap behind, at least, that I think it'll make it a lot easier for someone else to come in and say, well, what was Zoe doing? And then not just the other agencies, but the consultants that you've also kind of helped to kind of to get them to think in a certain way, in a particular mindset. I think they know what you're, I think you coached them a lot. You spent, hundreds of hours with them, and I think they probably go to sleep thinking what you're going to say if they propose some type of idea or something like that. But great job, and wish you the best. And as Jim said, I think you have a lot of friends, a lot of support, and anything that we can all do to make sure that you continue to be successful, that you can always reach out. Thank you.
Thank you, Zoe. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So.
Okay. Moving on to board comments, requests for future agenda items. We will start with board general comments, and we'll start to my right with Director Aguilar.
Thank you, Vice President. I just wanted to mention, first of all, I want to go back and just reiterate to everyone here that regarding Zoe that when the board first heard that you were going to be leaving, I can say that without exception, we were all pretty distraught. And you've set, I think, a foundation and floor for who we're going to be looking for to try to replace your skill set. I think it's going to be really hard, but you've really set that bar and really appreciate that, Zoe. So I wanted to get those comments out. And then secondly, with regard to the report that was made by Zoe regarding the Sigma basin. So we do this weekly television update, as I recall, on KMIR or one of the stations. I think that would be a really good topic for one of the presentations because it's all good news and something I think we can incorporate in a relatively short period of time. So I just wanted to mention that.
Okay.
Comments?
No further comments. Okay. What about any future agenda items from the board? Doesn't seem like it, so we'll move on to board meeting reports, and we'll start off with the Gulf Water Task Force. We were both there, so I think you need to add Director Bianco to that, and then I'll let you kind of
Go ahead.
go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was letting you go ahead. It was my first meeting. I decided to join Director Bianco. In that meeting, got to meet some of the folks that participate in that meeting from the golf associations, mostly, and then some other folks that represent various golf courses throughout the valley. To me, it looked like they track a lot of grant opportunities, reimbursement type grants that they've either used or plan to use, or it's available to use for the purposes of trying to conserve water. They expressed that for some reason it seems like they're not jumping at the reimbursement opportunities that we have right now. I don't know if it's just because it doesn't pencil out financially for them. They did say that they were hoping to figure out if there was a way that there could be grant funding that was used to plant a different type of grass that also resulted in significant water savings. So I thought that was a good idea. Not necessarily having to rip out all the grass, but just planting a different type of grass that would gain you some results on savings. So that was good. We were also, there seems to be like this spreadsheet that tracks water use by hole per golf course or something like that.
Well, it tracks it against evapotranspiration, how much was used, about how much was used per acre.
Yeah, but then it also sometimes the water use per acre goes up, but it's related also to the transpiration rate, which I think forces you to use more water, right? So that was kind of, it was a good introduction. I enjoyed it, and looking forward to being part of that throughout the year. Good. All right. Director Bianco agrees. Next meeting, the Coachella Valley Integrated Land Coalition's meeting. That was Director Powell Nelson. I think we're gonna We're gonna move that to the next meeting, and then we have another meeting that Director Bianco and I participated in. That was a discussion on the Monterey Crossing. That's a project off of Monterey, right next to the I-10. I'll be brief, and then you can add some words, Director Bianco. But basically, there's a project there at right next to the 10 on Monterey. It's where you have the Chick-fil-A. There's apparently some land there that's been in the works for development. They have they want to bring in about 3 buildings, small use buildings, a tire like an American Tires, a Dutch Brothers, and some type of recharge station. Electrical
EV station.
Yeah, EV station, and then there's also kind of longer term vision.
Hotel.
2 hotels, and so they are looking to have a conversation with the full board, I think, as relates to their ability to move forward with that development. They've have been given some conditions by staff that they are concerned about. And so I imagine that at some point they might come to the board to make a full presentation or at least make comments. But it's related to that project, and so that's what we talked about. Yeah?
That's good. Yeah.
Okay.
All has to do with basically the sewer line.
Yeah,
So
it's
isn't big enough to support their projects, and it needs to be upgraded. But there's also a whole bunch of other projects that are going to be using that sewer line, so it needs to be big. And
Yeah.
it's a big project.
it
Expensive.
it touches a lot of things, and so I think it merits a bigger conversation so that
It's the
all of
first
you.
one who does it first has to pay to
Yeah.
put it in.
Yeah, so kind of like the IID situation that we've been complaining about a lot. So, trying to make sure we don't get to that point. But, all right, so next meeting is March 5th, Salton Sea Conservancy meeting with Director Aguilar.
Thank you, Vice President. So this was a makeup Zoom call that I had with Joe Shea, who is the Undersecretary for Salton Sea Authority Affairs with California Natural Resources, to discuss the ongoing development of the role and responsibilities of the Conservancy relative to the Salton Sea Authority. And so we talked about that. We talked about what he's doing to prepare for implementation of the structure of the organization. We talked a little bit about the executive director's position. I made the point to him that we think, and Jim helped with this as well, that whomever they decide to select as either the interim executive director or as the permanent director, it needs to be somebody who has a local connection based on the history of the work that's been done here. And he seemed to acknowledge that. So his primary goal right now is to work with the governor's office on the budget allocation for the $10 million for the Conservancy, and whether or not that gets directly appropriated and into the budgets for the governor's office for the May revise. So it was pretty productive, and that's it.
Okay, great. Okay, good. Next meeting, March 8th, Lake Wea ceremonially signing. Director Bianco, we missed you. But we were joined by Director Nelson, and Jim was in attendance, and Elizabeth from the communications department. We had a speaking role. It went great. Mainly focused on talking about the history of the lake. I figured no one else was going to talk about that, so we kind of put out some facts on why the lake was built in the first place, when it was built, what it's used for, etc. I think it was well received. And then we had some ceremonial shoveling with a lot of the other folks there. We were looking for Jim, but he kind of flew out. But Director Nelson stayed back, so we have some pictures. But there was a lot of other folks that showed up. City of Palm Desert was there. City of La Quinta, City of Desert Hot Springs, City of Indio. It was good. Some of the veterans showed up. Mm-hmm. People are happy. They like the lake. So there's a few $1 million, maybe like $12-15 million that are going to come in from the county through some of the ARPA money they have to do some improvements. Mainly, they're going to, I think, refurbish the pool. There used to be a nice pool there. They're going to redo that. They're going to add an amphitheater, restrooms, a number of things, courts. Pickleball. So it'll be for the people that use that as a camping site. I think they're going to get to experience some new amenities, and so it was good that we did that. I think
it was a long time.
It was
coming.
It was, yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's been more than 4 years, right? Or 5 or 6.
At least 3.
I think we had at least 3 extensions of the lease when it expired.
Yeah.
So thanks to everybody for working on that.
Yeah, thank you. That everybody's happy.
Yeah.
Was that Carrie? Is it
Carrie and Jeff. Jeff Ferre was also involved.
Oh, Jeff, you too, Jeff.
The problem was the invasive species, and he takes
Yes.
responsibility for that.
That was the big one, and happy it was all. I know Kyla is happy that that's done too. So she was. It was like a party for her or something. But okay. Any other meetings that you need to report on? No. I have one. March 5th. We had a similar type of conversation that we had. The one that I had with Joe and Director Aguilar had with Joe. We had one with the Salton Sea Authority. So it was Patrick and Gina and myself and Joe, where we talked about a lot of the same stuff and talked about the main what came out of that meeting mainly was a conversation about how to split the $10 million that's in Prop 4. That can either go to the Salton Sea Authority or the Conservancy. And what we're pushing Patrick to do is to submit a proposal. Right. And so that's kind of what we said is, well, okay, we'll give them a proposal and then they can consider the proposal. So that's that was that meeting. And okay, do we have a motion to approve the per diem.
I'll make a motion.
Is there a
Second.
Second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, we're gonna move on to reports. General Manager.
I have nothing this morning, sir. Thank you.
Okay, Council.
Yes, thank you. Just wanted to mention briefly the U.S. Supreme Court case involving the county and city of San Francisco versus the EPA. It was interesting and got some news reports because it was San Francisco, of all cities, suing the EPA, and that the U.S. That the actual Supreme Court ruled in favor of San Francisco. This had to do with the requirements imposed by the EPA for an MPDES permit for the city and county of San Francisco for their offshore discharge of sewage effluent, which what they call the Oceanside plant. The EPA imposed particular pollutant requirements for that permit, but then also included some general requirements to maintain the water quality at the point of discharge. And the city said, we can comply with a particular pollutant requirements, but we shouldn't be held responsible for the entire water quality in the area when we may not be the one that caused the water quality to go down. The U.S. Supreme Court did rule in favor of the city and said, yes, the EPA has a requirement to set those actual pollutant requirements. And if they have a concern regarding water quality, they need to include that in their pollutant requirements, not have a general requirement that water quality be maintained. So a number of other large cities, New York, Boston, others, joined in that lawsuit. So it does provide some direction to EPA about what they can and cannot include in MPDES permits.
Kind of sounds like our issue with the Storm Channel, no? In a way, with the bacteria loading in there.
Right. I will defer to the experts on that, but it is quite a change from what we've seen before. So that's all I have, Vice President.
All right. Any other departments?
No, sir.
Doesn't
Not
seem
this
like
morning.
it. All right. With that, we're gonna move on to closed session, and then we'll be back. Thank you. Okay, we are back from closed session, back to open session. There are no reportable actions, and with that, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you.